Hello and welcome to the video. Today I wanted to show you how I turned some old styrofoam trash into more hills for my tabletop. Now I'm going to be using these for Frostgrave, but they're very versatile. They could be used for anything else, Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer, anything that you may see fit. Now these are definitely budget-friendly hills. They're not going to be quite to the level that you could get with using XPS foam or better materials, but hey, almost everybody just has some old styrofoam laying around, and if you're in desperate need of some quick hills for your gaming table, which I think everybody can use more of, then this video might be up your alley. Now, right from the beginning here, I'm just kind of dry fitting pieces together here to see how I want to put them together. And my idea for this one is to get a large hill set, but to have it for a corner piece on the table. I don't really have any big corner pieces, and I thought that that would look kind of cool. Almost like a cliff hillside area. So I'm just kind of doing a rough cut of the size that I want, because we're going to be shaving this down a lot, and we're going to be cutting into it the levels and the ledges that we want. So here it's just very rough. I don't know how it's going to turn out just yet, and I just wanted to kind of start building. And that's the key, is to just get going with some of these. That was the hardest part on any of these builds, is just getting started. So I'm going to use this utility knife. And since this is so thick, I'm just going to have to kind of saw through it. And as you know, styrofoam is just terrible to try to cut through and to keep it clean. And anytime that you're cutting like this, try to be careful. Do not cut yourself. But during the process, I was careful. I went slow, and always try to cut away from yourself. You know, you don't want to accidentally slip and cut into your hand. It's not going to look cool with real blood all over the terrain. But just take your time with it and be careful. Once you have a rough shape for it, I'm just going to put these together and hold them in place and just slowly start shaving away to make it more of a hillside, more of a slope. And what I planned for this piece was to almost kind of have ledges going up it where they were less than an inch high for the miniatures, so that they wouldn't have to use a lot of their movement to climb up it. And then they could actually stand on those ledges as they're moving up. And of course, styrofoam is not the ideal material to be using, but I just wanted to show this for people that maybe they don't have access to XPS foam or the funds to buy pre-made terrain. Styrofoam's not ideal, but it'll do in a pinch, and it looks better than a book or a pop can or something being used for terrain. But of course, styrofoam is going to make a terrible mess, so just have the vacuum cleaner on hand, because due to static electricity, these little foam balls are going to stick to everything. It's going to look like it's snowing in your hobby room. I also went ahead and carved up this small hill because, hey, you just can't have enough hills. They're great for blocking line of sight. They're great for climbing up on, getting the height advantage, and they might even stop some of the dice from rolling off the table. Alright, once we got our pieces all carved up, just to join them together, I use Gorilla Glue for mine. Watch using PVA glue, because that needs a lot of air circulation to dry. If it doesn't, like if it's stuck between styrofoam or regular foam, it's going to take weeks if it ever dries. You could try hot glue gun, but I'm not sure if it would melt through styrofoam or not. So just be careful with it. Maybe experiment on a piece of scrap foam. And I like to put a heavy object on top of the two overnight and really let them dry good. Now to coat these, you can use the Mod Podge and black paint recipe that most people do use. I use PVA glue. It's what I had on hand instead of Mod Podge, and I also put a dash of plaster of Paris in there just to give it a little extra strength. And we are going to put a nice heavy coat on this. When it dries, it's going to help hide some of the texture of the styrofoam, and you're not going to see so many of the little foam balls that really are characteristic of styrofoam. This will help hide some of it. And you want a nice coating on here to give it some extra protection. And while it's still wet, what we're going to do is just sprinkle on some of this really coarse sand. You get a little bit of gravel on there, that won't hurt anything, but I really think that putting this coarse sand on here really adds to the texture of the piece, but it also helps disguise that the piece is made of styrofoam. Okay, now once that dries, and it's going to take a while to dry, I hit it with a coat of black spray paint just to cover up some of the extra spots that were left. And now we're going to dry brush with these cheap apple barrel paints that I got at Walmart, and these are really cheap. It's like 50 cents, maybe $1 for the small ones, and then maybe $2 for the big ones, but they last forever. I'm going to start off by putting a light dry brush of brown on more of the earthy parts of this piece. I think I'm going to keep the flatter areas and some of the sharper edges and make them more of a stone, so I'm going to use a gray on those. But for the vast majority of the sides and some of the creases on this, I'm just using this brown here just to give it a more like an earthy tone to it. And again, these are really quick. You can go as detailed as you want. You can put as many colors into this as you want. I thought for Frostgrave, what I would like to do sometime is to make some of these and then put a dark blue undercoat to them. But I like to keep these pieces very versatile and not just have them specific for one game. I like to make them so that I can use them in a variety of games, whether it's Frostgrave, D&D, Warhammer, because depending on the battle mat, if you make these too snow covered, then you can't put them on something that has grass or maybe that's blasted in a futuristic landscape. So I try to make them generic in a way that I could use them in a variety of different games. Once we get our brown on here, I'm just going to mix some black and white, and I'm going to do a gray dry brush on the rocky parts for this. So I actually end up hitting the brown parts with a little bit of this gray dry brush as well, just to pick out the highlights, but you want to make sure that you're keeping some of that black undercoat there as well. It just adds a little bit more detail to it. And I like my terrain, I like my characters and all of that, I like them on the darker side. And our hills are all finished. Now, the lighting here makes them look really light compared to what they look like under normal lighting. So all I have to say is that I'm not a big fan of how they look here on camera versus how they look in person. I am happy with how they came out though. For using Styrofoam, they have a nice, like rough, rocky look to them. And to make them look better, you could add a lot of flocking to them, or you could put snow on them or such. But like I said, I wanted them to be versatile, that I could use them in a variety of different games. But yeah, for using just chunks of Styrofoam, I'm happy with how they came out. I mean, you could definitely make better ones from XPS foam or to get some pre-made ones. But I think for very quick, very easy, and very affordable hills, they do the job. And I got a nice corner piece is what I was going for, is I wanted something to just take up a corner of the table whenever I play. So I hope that you enjoyed watching, and I hope that this inspires you to try making some of your own terrain. You don't have to use a lot of expensive materials. You can just kind of use whatever you have available and get some decent results from it. So I want to say thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.